Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a fascinating and honestly super common leadership dilemma that plays out in boardrooms across the globe literally every single day. Picture this for a second. You have a visionary leader. They know the trends, they totally understand the future, and they know exactly what needs to be done. Yet, they are completely paralyzed. They're trapped by the very legacy systems and that stubborn, we've always done it this way culture they're desperately trying to fix. It's an incredibly frustrating trap. But getting out of it, well, that requires a very specific kind of pivot. So how exactly does a visionary leader get totally boxed in like this? To answer that, we're going to look at a real-world case study using an actual agnostic innovation and leadership assessment. It's known as the SAIL Leadership Report. By diving into the hard data of a real executive's profile, we can demystify these institutional traps, and, much more importantly, we can map out the escape route. Meet the protagonist of today's story. This is Susang, the CEO of a company called ABM. Now, Susang recently took this SAIL assessment, and it identified her leadership persona as the strategic navigator. As a strategic navigator, Susang is someone who naturally focuses on the why. She has this absolute talent for connecting the dots between abstract innovation, tangible business outcomes, and massive global trends. On paper, she is exactly the kind of modern, forward-thinking leader you want at the helm of a company when you're trying to navigate major change. But then, boom. The report drops a massive reality check. Susan's overall readiness score is a surprising 49%. Ouch, right? For a CEO, especially one who prides herself on being a strategic thinker, seeing a readiness score below 50% is a total shock. But it establishes a really crucial baseline for us. Susan definitely has the vision, but right now she's lacking the environment or the toolkit to actually execute it. Okay, let's dive into this and see exactly where that 49% comes from. The SAIL report breaks down a leader's competency across 6 critical dimensions. If we look at the middle of the pack, her aptitude sits at a solid 53%, and her abilities are right at 50%, so she's completely capable. But you know how it is at these assessments, right? The real story doesn't live in the averages. It always lives in the extremes. To really understand Suzanne's predicament, we have to look at the very top and the very bottom of her chart. Think of these as her character stats, and man, a stark contrast emerges. On one side, her strengths are formidable. Her worldview scores a 57%, and her fortitude is right behind it at 56%. But on the flip side, we uncover these massive blind spots. Her attitude drops sharply down to 38%, and her leadership is the lowest of all at just 37%. So what we have here is a leader with incredible perspective and resilience, but surprisingly low marks in the exact areas required to actually mobilize a team. Let's unpack those strengths first. Those high scores in worldview and fortitude are her absolute bedrock. Because she scores a 57 and a 56 here, she possesses a perspective far broader than her immediate day-to-day circumstances. She clearly sees the absolute necessity for change. And her resilience? It acts as a critical anchor, steadying the company even when all those legacy systems are actively resisting modernization. She literally holds the mental maps required for this strategic pivot. But here comes the true antagonist of our story, that glaringly low attitude score of 38%. The coaching summary suggests this score means Susan might be unintentionally signaling resignation to her team. You see, when a leader feels constrained by a lack of funding or a lack of time, that frustration leaks out. The report states it perfectly. When a strategic navigator loses their infectious optimism for the future, the organization defaults to the old school ways because they feel safe and proven. Wow, so Susang's frustration is actually breeding the exact apathy she's trying to fight? And that brilliantly illustrates why her leadership score is sitting at a mere 37%. Because of that lost optimism, her current leadership gap shows she is merely managing existing constraints rather than actively reshaping the culture to value innovation. She's basically treating the lack of resources as a giant brick wall, leaving all of her brilliant strategic insights trapped behind this massive wall of institutional inertia. It's like she can see the destination perfectly, but she's completely stopped driving the bus to get there. So that brings us to the million-dollar question. How do we break through that wall of institutional inertia? Suzanne knows the company needs to change, but she has no budget, extremely limited time, and a totally apathetic team. It sounds like a complete dead end. But the executive coaching summary provides a highly actionable strategy to bypass these roadblocks entirely and finally elevate that 37% leadership score. Enter the small wins protocol. This is a hyper-targeted, deliberate approach designed to basically shatter the illusion of resource scarcity. Instead of trying to boil the ocean or overhaul massive, entrenched legacy systems in one giant, expensive sweep, this protocol focuses entirely on micro innovations. It's all about generating undeniable momentum, just on a very small scale. Here is the actual protocol in action, a beautifully simple 3-step procedure. Step 1, you just select one minor, super low-cost process within the legacy system that needs fixing. Step 2, empower a small cross-functional team to tackle it. And Step 3, honestly, this is the secret weapon to bypass those agonizing budget approvals, cap their effort at only 10% of their weekly time. No massive budget requests, no operational shutdowns, just a tiny fraction of a week to fix one specific thing. The real brilliance of this protocol lies in the psychological shift it creates. By zooming in on these micro-innovations, Susan proves to her team, and honestly to herself, that creativity is a mindset rather than a budget item. That's a direct, incredibly powerful realization right from her coaching summary. When that small team actually succeeds in improving that minor process, it creates a highly visible proof of concept. It shows the rest of the organization that change is possible, it's safe, and it's actually beneficial. That immediately shifts organizational interest and fights off that default back to old school ways. By leading this way, Suzanne completely flips her own script. She evolves from being merely a navigator of existing paths, someone just managing the day-to-day grind and constraints, into a true architect of new possibilities. She leads by doing. And the ultimate strategic genius of the Small Wins Protocol is that by stacking these tiny, low-cost victories over and over, she eventually generates the undeniable momentum and hard evidence required to secure formal funding for those much larger initiatives she originally dreamed up. So as we wrap this up, I want to turn the mirror back onto you for a second. Think about your own organization and your own personal leadership style. Where are your brilliant strategic insights currently trapped behind a wall of institutional inertia? Are you just managing constraints right now, or are you actively reshaping culture? Take a page straight out of Susan Wong's playbook. Find your 10%. Launch your own Small Wins Protocol, and start building the proof of concept that will finally turn you into an architect of new possibilities.